Hey, this is Dave.
Hey, what's going on? This is Brandon.
This is Joshua.
And this is Amelia Kinkade. Angela from Night of the Demons, part 1, 2, and 3. And you are now tuned into PVD horror.
All right.
Professional.
All right. So we have Amelia Kinkade here joining us, Angela from Night of the Demons. I did not think we would ever see this day that you would be joining us. So this is pretty awesome. So thank you so much for this.
You're so welcome. A lot of beautiful things have come out of COVID. It's really a point of view. And if we see the opportunities to make things work, this is a whole new way to bring the world together.
Yeah.
And we got to capitalize on it. And I think you guys are really on top of things. All three of you are not even in the same room. And there are 4 of us on this, and that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like Dave was saying, thanks for joining us today. It's been a while since we last spoke. Like I was talking to you before, I was able to meet you back in 2019 at the Salem Horror Fest. That was around the same time we were gearing up for our Night of the Demons event that we were doing for a Providence animal rescue that we would sit there and donate for charity and everything and do our events for. So it's kind of good having you on and being able to talk about Night of the Demons and everything.
That's so cool. Next time you do a charity event, do it for my charity.
Okay.
So mine's called Amelia's Arc. It's ARK, Amelia's
Okay.
Archangel Society. So one of the plugs I'll give you right up front, if this is going out before Christmas, if people get on Amazon Smile when they do their shopping, and I'm going to ask all the fans to do this, then Amazon donates to your chosen charity. You have an opportunity to click on what you want to support. Now, I go into schools in Africa in rural communities. I mean, places where some kids have shoes, some don't have shoes. They have to have uniforms. They have to be sponsored to go to school. And this is also part of that whole wild child, rebellious, fiery Angela theme of where can I do something to make the world a better place? And what am I passionate about? So rather than expecting somebody else to go do it, I would just pull out a credit card and go do it. So in the schools in Africa, we dance as elephants, we draw elephants, we make up plays about poaching and protecting the animals so that the children understand that protecting the animals on the safari parks is their only long-term financial security. No matter what kind of job they get. If they allow all the animals to get poached, and a lot of it's not coming from Africa, the people that are offering up $500,000 to chop off a lion's head are somewhere else, But if the kids know, and that I think that's what's so cool about what's happening now. In South Africa, I do it with the lions. In Rwanda, with a gorilla. I had over 180 orphans drawing gorilla, dancing as gorilla, talking about whether or not gorilla have feelings. Do they love their families? Would they miss their mother if their mother got killed? Pangolin in Zimbabwe was the most recent one when nobody knew what that was until COVID, because they linked it back to some of the either contamination or experimentation was done on pangolin, which are a little anteater. So the children is what's so cool. And you just showed me a picture of the kids. Your
yeah.
kids.
Yep.
And nothing in the world could be more flattering that 30 years later, the fans coming to see me, not only do they have tattoos of me on their bodies, this isn't even the fans, these are the kids, the fans. And they come in with their babies dressed as me, their toddlers dressed as me, their dogs dressed as me, drag queens come in dressed as me. I mean, so it's some sort of pop culture phenomenon. Now, I don't know if any of you guys are old enough to remember the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Yes.
Yeah.
But people always ask me what my inspiration was for this. And I don't mean to offend anybody in the horror community, but the truth is, I was not watching horror before I made this movie.
Mhm.
And now I see, in a way, how that worked, because I think a lot of the cast members, now Linnea was already a horror buff. I don't think Kathy Podwell was. I don't think Alvin Alexis, who played Roger, was. I mean, I don't think any of the other ones of us were. So when somebody says, act scary, act possessed, dance like you're possessed, I wasn't mimicking anybody else. It came from my soul.
That's awesome.
And it's so I think we're at a place now where it's almost hard for a filmmaker to do something that hasn't been done before.
Mhm.
Or an actor to do something, or a special effects guy to do something. I mean, I'll look at things now and go, gosh, it looks like us. I mean, the orcs even look like us. Because how many ways can you make a possessed character, with red eyes or whatever? It's pretty dull now. And I just am so flattered that people even remember this movie, much less that it made such an impression on you.
Yeah, so like I said, the picture with me and my kids and my kids always look back to that, and it was just like, wow, that was like a fun time, because when we were sitting there talking and we were able to have a conversation like with you, like we knew you for years, and so that's the one thing that I think that's really cool, going to conventions and getting that time with people that you grew up watching on film and talking to them and having that experience. So thank you for doing that, and keep doing a great job, because I know that like when conventions pop up and everything like that, you're one of like the biggest names that people like to go out and see, and so when I had seen that you were going to Salem Horror Fest, I was like, oh man, we have to meet her, because Dave was supposed to come with me too, but he had to end up going to do something else.
Yeah, me and you went the day before thinking
Yeah.
we were gonna see Amelia and Mark Patton, and we had the wrong day. So Brandon
Yeah.
went back the next day.
Oh, wow. How cool. And what did your children watch this movie? I'm going to get on to you, Brandon.
Yeah, my kids love it. My kids love the movie.
Now, I'll tell you something funny. I found out this last year. I spent the last year in Dallas because Texas was open, and it was one of the only places that I could work. And I discovered that Hispanic mothers use me to scare their kids. And they say, Angela's going to get you. Angela's going to get you. I said, oh, gosh, that's terrible. I want to know if you do that.
I don't have to do
Is
that.
Angela going to get them? And
Nah.
two of the guys were fans, and they did a podcast like this when I was in Vegas.
Mhm.
And I ended up going to their house.
Oh,
Because
man.
I just said, why don't I just drive out there? And then kind of fell in love with the family and had dinner with them, their wives and their mother. And they had this huge, wonderful Mexican spread for me. And we had a ball together. We just hit it off.
That's amazing.
But they said that their mother would say to them, Angela's in the house. And here I am sitting at their dinner table. And I said, how do you like that? No, Angela is in your house.
Yeah.
That's
You
awesome.
conjured me, you manifested me.
That wouldn't work with Brandon's kids. They're not afraid of
No.
anything. His daughter's hoping she's going to get possessed by Chucky. I mean,
I can't believe that no one has not put my possessed face on the poster in the bathroom and said, this is what's going to happen if you don't brush your teeth. If I can't make your kids brush your teeth, nobody can.
It's a good point. we should
You gotta wear your sunscreen. You gotta wear your sunscreen. I'm still waiting for that offer from Banana Boat or Colgate.
Yeah.
That'd be hilarious. They should do it.
So you've been doing a lot of great work with as an animal activist. At the convention, we were talking about you going to Africa and everything and doing all your workshops. And you've been doing animal communication workshops over the world. When did you realize that you had the gift to communicate with animals?
It happened around the time of Demons 1. I think it was a little bit before Demons 1. And the beauty of the books that I've written and the teaching that I deliver is that I learned it from scratch. I mean, I had no idea. I
Yeah.
had no idea I could do it. And it would be like if somebody came to you and said, now you don't know this because you've been taught that it's not true,
Mhm.
but you can fly. And you go, what? I mean, your first response is, that's crazy. That's totally insane. And there was a woman coming to town, and I was in North Hollywood, and she was driving all over America in a van full of dogs, going from one vet's office to another, solving the problems the vets couldn't solve. And she had gone on the Johnny Carson show and made Ed McMahon cry. She was on live, and she read his cat live. She was fearless. You know, she was absolutely fearless. And she could tell them, you know, what tooth is rotting. He's got a cyst on his kidney and he's limping because this vertebra is, I mean, she was phenomenal. And her name was Beatrice Leidecker. And she really was at the forefront of this, because it's also, and I do think that this is that fiery Angela spirit, the outcast spirit, that I protect the outcasts. And I think that that also is true with the movies. Because when I ask the fans, what is it? What on earth are you? Why would you like this movie? What do you like about this movie? What do you like about this character? Why am I tattooed on your body? What does it mean to you? They always, I don't know. But then if I weasel it out of them, they'll say, you protected me as a child.
Mhm.
And the most flattering thing to me is that they didn't see me as a villain, which I am, but I got even with all the obnoxious kids in high school in this movie. And who of us didn't want to do that? Especially all my gay fans. Who of my drag queen fans didn't want to do that? Who of my artist friends, my artist fans, they say that they're sitting in the bedroom binge watching Night of the Demons so they don't get hit, or so they don't get raped by the stepfather, or I mean, the stories are heartbreaking. And to be that emblem of courage is such an incredible honor for me. But it's that same courage that I started. I took a workshop thinking I can't do it. I'll be the only person in the room who can't do it, because I had taken my cat to see her and she absolutely blew my mind. Blew my mind. I
Mhm.
mean, what she did was so impossible. It just blew my world wide open. So I take my little loudmouth rescued stray cat to see her. And she says, oh, he says his favorite place to sleep is on the back of a peach colored armchair in your den. And the armchair is covered with white flowers. And right next to it is a huge bay window. And his view from there is the wooden fence across the street. And there's a little white dog behind that fence. He goes over there and makes that dog bark.
Mhm.
Then she goes on to describe, oh, I said, why hasn't he been hungry lately? She said, do you know you have two little girls that live next door that are 7 and 5, and they've been letting him in and feeding him? So everything she said, who's got a peach colored couch covered in flowers? That was the only place he sat, the only peach colored chair. And I didn't know he went across the street and teased that little dog. That little white dog. And of course, there were 2 little girls next door. I didn't know they were letting my cat in to be fed. She answered every question. She solved all my problems. The next step was my learning that I could do it. And in floods of tears, I took a workshop and connected out on this heart level, this soul level with a dog. And the dog described a pine tree that was his favorite tree, and pine cones, and behind that was a trailer home. And I was asking this big black kind of lab mix, pit bull mix. What, have you ever been in love? Have you ever had puppies? And I found myself inside her body, skimming 6 inches across the grass, running toward a chain link fence, licking the next door neighbor's dog's face. And I heard a voice say, if I could have had puppies, I would have wanted to have them with him. But my mother got divorced. She took me away in the divorce. We left the trailer home. I had to leave him. I never saw him again. I had, my mother got me fixed. I felt the pain. I look down and I'm bleeding and I see the stitches and my belly's cut open and I'm in the body of a dog.
Mhm.
And she said, and now I take care of all the neighborhood cats. And I have my nose in all these sweet smelling little fluffball cats. I've taught up in Rhode Island before, years ago, where you guys are.
Oh, that's
And
cool.
many marvelous workshops in Massachusetts, Kripalu, Omega, upstate New York, Manhattan at the Open Center. But when I discovered I could do it, and I think this is the point that I'm trying to make. And it's not that different from what you said, that you come through my line and I treat you like you're my best friend.
Mhm.
It doesn't make me special. I'm not on some pedestal because I have all these shocking psychic abilities. We all do.
Mhm.
We all have them. We've been taught that we don't have them. So I'm not saying I'm special, I can do something you can do. I'm saying everybody can do this. You can do this. You've been taught that you can't do it, but that doesn't mean you can't do it. You've been taught to not believe in it, but when you do it, you prove it to yourself. I don't have to prove it to you. You're going to prove it to yourself. And now 27 countries. And a lot of those countries I taught in every single year for 19 years. I went to Africa every single year for 19 years pre-COVID. And what I found is it doesn't matter where I am, Brazil, Norway, Germany, Italy, Poland, England, Ireland, Scotland, Portugal. It doesn't matter where I am, Mexico, Canada. I can have 100 people in the room. And by the end of it, a day, 90% of them can do it. Some people are so stuck, they're in their own way. And it's people who want to be in control. Because you're going to relinquish control and let the Spirit of God use your body and honor the Spirit of God in this animal and let something magical happen that you didn't think you could do. You have to completely surrender yourself and be in service of helping this person who's in crisis and this animal who's struggling with either health problems, behavior problems, whatever it is, post-traumatic stress. And once we're in that heart-loving space, something happens. And it's not that different from the dance and Night of the Demons 1 that I choreographed roughly, but I choreographed it in an apartment the size of a kitchen, you know? And I just said, get a handheld and let's go. Get it on the first take, because I can't promise it's going to happen again. Just get it on the first take, because here we go. And that's what all art is, really. If you're composing, you're going to surrender yourself to hearing the music.
Yeah.
Same thing with writing. You've got to learn how to get it out of your own way. It's all fear. But this is what's cool about podcasts like this. You're finding this new creative outlet so that you can reach other people and nourish your own soul at the same time, so that we're not all just sitting around alone, driving ourselves crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. We all are, I myself included. You spend all day in your own head, you're going to go nuts.
Yeah. And one of the best parts that I've enjoyed about this is, we did this podcast with the theme of horror, but rarely does our conversation stick to just horror. And I mean, we're already having that here today, but that's been kind of the common theme in most of our episodes. When we do an interview, we end up talking about life and how to get through certain endeavors and how to try to achieve dreams. And there's so many different themes that we've covered. It's actually like amazing, because it's so much more than just a horror podcast. And and there's so many layers to every individual that we've interviewed. So I already, this conversation is like amazing for me, because I'm so intrigued as an animal lover, which all three of us love animals, but I'm like so connected to my own pets. So I'm listening to you and I'm like, I really would love to know what they would communicate, other than just like the basic, like when they look at me and they're next to their bowl. Yeah, I know you want food, I get it. But other than that, I know there's so much more that's that we're missing. And I'm just wondering, like, what are some of the important messages that you've taken away from being able to do the readings? And what types of themes have you come up with that have been impactful to you, learning about relationships with humans and their animals?
Well, they have an emotional scope and an intellectual scope that is not only equal to human beings in most instances, but bigger than that. And humans don't want to admit that. Humans want to say we're the best of everything, we're at the top of the food chain, we're the most intelligent, we're the most important. That's not true. That's not true. And the basis of animal communication is if I'm meeting a wild tiger, or a tiger that just attacked the keeper in the most famous tiger sanctuary in the world, which is true. John Vardy called me from ICU. He was shredded. He was barely alive. And I flew to Africa to talk to the tiger. And he said, can you come talk to the tiger? I'm going to put him down. I said, you're not going to put him down. You're going to put him down on my dead body. I'm on a plane. I'm coming. And then to negotiate the problem, what did the guy do? It's not just, oh, it's a ferocious tiger and he's going to kill you. No, he's not. I'm not going to kill you. I mean, I'm face to face with wild tigers. I mean, wild tigers. And the ferocity, the dangerousness of that creature is only one small part of who they are. I want them to be able to protect themselves. I want them to be able to kill me. I want them to be able to set boundaries and say, if you hurt, and the reason that he did, he showed me that the female tiger next to him, the tigress that he considered his wife, had been humiliated when a film crew came in and said all sorts of rude, demeaning things in front of her. And see, this is one thing, everybody does it with their dogs. The first thing out of their mouth, he's blind in one eye, she's fat, she's diabetic, she's put on weight. I said, how would you like it if I introduced you like that? This is my friend Brandon. He's put on 25 pounds during COVID. And you wouldn't believe how obnoxious he is to his wife. And I mean, you
She's
do
just
not
kidding.
do that.
She's just kidding.
Just kidding. Just kidding. I'm making it.
I lost like 100 pounds during COVID, and you're like,
Yeah.
But so part of it is understanding that this being, this man, and it might be a show horse man, he's a horse, but he's a man. He's a gorilla, but he's a man. It's a shark, but it's a man. It's an eagle, but it's a man. You're respecting their dignity. You're not going to go in there and humiliate them. And most people shame and blame their animals. They scream at them, they boss them around. They want something to control. And the animals are very patiently waiting for us to grow up. They're showing you, this is how we're going to be loving. This is how I'm going to lick your tears off your face. This is how I'm going to cuddle with you and snuggle with you and try to cheer you up. It's not they're being selfish. They want you to come off the computer and come play with them. No, they're looking at you going, okay, he's been stressing in front of that computer screen for 2 hours. I'm going to take him outside. We're going to go out. We're going to have a run. We're going to go out and look at the trees and the grass and the flowers and the snow. And I'm going to shake him out of this negative state that he's in. They're constantly trying to help us. And we need to start having the emotional maturity to understand what we're dealing with. That we're dealing with these creatures that are God's most precious designs. It's a masterpiece. I work with the cheetah. It's a masterpiece. Wild lions, wild leopards, giraffe, elephants, even crocodiles. They're masterpieces. But what do we know about them? Only what the previous generation wrote in books, what somebody else thought they knew about dog behavior, what your professors thought they knew about insects and bats and why it's okay to torture them and kill them. No, it's not. It's not. And unless you can talk to them and you can hear them, how can we make assumptions about who and what they are? How do we know what they're thinking and feeling, how intelligent they are? We wouldn't. You've got to be able to hear that person speak. And in my case, that person might be a wild deer or a frog or a squirrel. Oh, gosh. Oh, the New York Times put me on the cover once, and they created this cartoon of me because I wrote this ridiculous story in my first book, Straight from the Horse's Mouth, and it was about squirrels. And this was the funny one where I said, when you talk to a squirrel, they come down to you, they look at you, and they say, "Hey, lady, you got any nuts? You got nuts?" I was like, "No." Okay, this is Central Park, New York City. The squirrel's hanging upside down on the tree. What? I'll wait right here, lady. You go get me some nuts. All right, so they know that there's some nut warehouse somewhere that the humans go and buy their pecans from. I mean, they know that. And they're going to wait for you to go to the grocery store and go get them their peanuts or walnuts or whatever. And I said, squirrels are the one animal. They don't care whether or not you're an animal communicator or not. They don't care whether you can hear them or not. They've divided the human race into two categories: people that have nuts and people that don't have nuts. And I said, and people who are nuts is not one of the options.
Yeah.
They drew this cartoon of me squatting down in front of a squirrel in Central Park, and the theme, the caption says, "Hey, lady, got any nuts?" So, I mean, funny things happen too, but to answer your question, and it's a very complicated roundabout way of answering this question, they mirror your behavior. They can't help but mirror your behavior. They're trapped in your house. They're going to put up with you. You've got them on a leash, or you got the cat locked in the house. They are going to mirror your behavior. So when I have a student, "Why is my dog so angry? Why does my dog attack everybody?" Go on. Sure, it has nothing to do with you, darling. "Why's my dog so nervous? My dog barks all the time. He never shuts up. What's wrong with my dog? I don't like the pitch of his voice. Why that?" Oh, I'm sure it has nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
So that's one of the ways that they mirror you. Then they mirror you more than you know, more than you would ever want to know. You may have two animals that are fighting, and I ask, "What's going on?" And maybe you're fighting with your wife, or you're fighting with one of your kids, and they're mirroring what else is going on in the house because they're looking at you as the alpha owner. Now they're looking at you to show them what to do. Calm, confident, and in charge. That's what alpha means. It's not domineering. It's not controlling. It's not insulting. There's a whole way of including them. We're together. Now, what's important to you is important to me because I love you and care about you because you're my best friend. Now, once you're in that space and you're willing to go walking, and yes, that seagull poop, man, that tastes better than anything in the world. That we like to roll in fox poop. We like to fish the cat poop out of the kitty litter. But if we're siding with them, saying that, wow, let's go see if the seagulls have been here. Now, the amount of trust that you're going to build with that animal, that you're able to say, what is it? And rather than say, no, don't do that. The person may project the fear. The woman freezes up. The dog attacks the other dog. Why is my dog attack the other dog? It's her. He thinks he has to protect her because she obviously can't protect herself. She's not in control of her own emotions. You get control of your own emotions, you'll get control of your dog. And I don't even like the word control. I like the word command. This is a collaborative effort. I've got the top show horses in the world. And the last show, the richest man in the world flew me to Rome and Vienna to make sure his horse won the gold medal. So we did. 2 different horses. She won the silver. We got beat at a third of a second, the second show. But I don't do it the way everyone else does it. I do it completely differently. I fight for the horse's rights. He's tired. He doesn't need to go out and run the course and practice. That horse could do it in his sleep. He needs to take a nap. I bring in beautiful music. I give him treats. I massage him. I pray with him. We run the course in our minds. I bring in dance music and start amping them up. I'm dancing in the stall with them. Now, all the other jockeys think she's out of her mind. We don't do things like this. We're going to treat the horses like slaves. And would set up power tools outside her stall and blow cigarette smoke in her face and say rude things about her, and then demand that she go out there and win the gold medal. So what people don't understand is that all the animals giving back to you is what you're giving to them. So you have to start it. I love you. I love everything about you. I understand. We're going to go look for, and it might be something you don't like. You don't want them to do that. And when you side with them and say, why do you like that so much? What's going on here? You're going to find a whole world that you didn't know existed. And you're acting out their patterns. They're acting out your patterns. Medically, they're acting out your patterns. And this is craziness. But I've seen it for 30 years. I didn't set out to establish this point. But I had one lady who got 6 different golden retriever puppies from 6 different families. Every single dog would develop a platelet problem. Finally, I turned to this woman. I said, what's wrong with your blood? And she said, I have a platelet problem. I said, yeah, no kidding. So what we're finding is that even diseases are energetic, and maybe the person is acting out something. I know, for instance, I was teaching in Germany, I think, and one of the guys in the workshop was getting attacked by his own dog. And he went out and got a dog to protect him. And then the dog starts attacking him. He's scared to death of the dog. Wants to muzzle the dog. I said, don't muzzle the dog. Let me talk to your dog. The dog told me that the man had an abusive older brother. So in his mind, he thinks, I'm going to go get a dog to protect me. But then the dog starts acting out the pattern of what the man hasn't dealt with yet. How he's still broken, to bring that to light so that he can heal it. So the dog starts acting like the abusive older brother that used to beat him up. And when we brought it up, and I said, now you're the father. You're the kind, gentle, loving father. You're the kind, gentle, loving older brother. Not what you had, but what you wish you had. Animals are giving us the opportunity. And those of you who have kids, it's giving you the opportunity not to act like your parents, but to act like the father you wish you had, or the mother you wish you had. because they only could do what they knew how to do. They were doing the best they could. But now we have an opportunity to do better. So it's endless. Cancer's getting shared, crazy quirks getting shared, and they're looking to you for the cues of this is how we behave. And it seems pretty common sense that you're going to have your house filled with great smells and flowers and beautiful music, and you're going to dance with them, and you're going to play with them, and you're going to cook with them. But most people don't do that. And if you do it for your animals, you end up doing it for you. If you end up doing it for your animals, then your kids are also going to have that party at home. Your wife's going to have this peaceful space to live in. So there's so much there. There's so much there. I mean, esoteric topics, they reincarnate. I didn't set out to prove that, but they do. One time I was teaching a workshop, and this woman brought in a ferret. And she asked the group, has this ferret ever been with me before? And I see in my mind a little black and white dog that was sitting on her couch, and the dog died last May. And I said, you were that dog that just died? And the ferret said, yeah. I said, why'd you come back as a ferret? And he said, because she just moved to an apartment building where she's not allowed to have dogs.
Huh.
Crazy.
Yeah.
But true. I see goats come back as bunnies, and bunnies come back as canaries. And the energy is always in flux. So it's like God's creating artwork. And then that artwork, and this is quantum physics, this is a scientific fact. The same energy that made up your body might have been an ancient star system. In fact, it is an ancient star system. Our cells are made up of atoms that are eternal. And they've been here and from other places all over the galaxy since the beginning of time. So the energy is getting emitted and reabsorbed in different ways. And the animals are your spirit guides that follow you through life. It's hard to find somebody who doesn't have a dog that they didn't have. It was the same dog they had as a child. And it's undeniable. If the dog says to me, oh, I was the Springer Spaniel that got hit by a car when she was 7. And now I'm back because they're taking care of us. We're not taking care of them.
Yeah.
We're their pets.
Yeah.
So I'm going to sit there, and then we're going to go a different way now. But usually Josh is the guy that brings up sitcoms and soap operas. But watching the Golden Girls with my grandmother brings back a lot of memories. I want to know, how was it growing up as Rue McCallaghan's niece?
Well, she set the bar in a way that I never would have. I mean, if I mean, it might not even be, I was going to say a kid in the South, in the rural South, but same thing in New England, same thing all over America. You don't think you can go be a movie star.
Yeah.
You're growing up in Oklahoma in some little town. You don't think, oh, I'll go to Broadway and be a movie star. If somebody didn't show you that that's possible, you would not pursue that path because you'd think, oh, that's not going to work. That's ridiculous. No one's going to let that. And most parents don't let their kids do it. And my grandmother was a hairdresser. And she was the first woman in Norman, Oklahoma, Ardmore, Oklahoma, then to have her own beauty shop. She had her own business, which was a big deal back then. And my grandfather had gone off to the war, World War II, which has happened to almost all of us. The man's gone. The woman is raising the kids alone, not knowing if he's ever going to come back alive, not knowing if that war is ever going to end. And I think that's a lot what COVID has felt like. Because when we're going through this, all I can think about is how did they survive World War II? How'd they get through Vietnam? How did they get through that? So you don't know when or if it's ever going to end.
Sure.
And my aunt went to Broadway from Oklahoma. She also was a dancer like me. She was a hoofer in the beginning. And Norman Lear saw her on Broadway and fell madly in love with her and put her on All in the Family. If you're old enough to remember All in the Family, it was a hilarious special. She just did one show and it was called The Swingers. So Edith answers an ad in the paper from a lonely couple looking for friends. And then the guy comes in with these expensive cigars and gives them to Archie. And he corners Edith in the kitchen and tries to make out with her. And there's this scene where Rue hits on Archie. And he used to do these reaction shots where he's sitting on the couch, like meathead that he is. He looks into the camera and he's like, oh shit. You just see this look on his. She's reached out, she's put her arms around him, she's snuggled him, and it dawns on him what's happening, that she's hitting on him. So it made such an impact that led to Maud, where she played the hilarious next door neighbor. And while B. Arthur was the women's liber, she was answering the door wearing nothing but saran wrap because she thought her husband was coming home and she wanted to surprise him.
Oh my
And so
God.
it's this constant crazy nonsense. And then of course the Golden Girls. And of course I invented that character one night over too much champagne when I was 19 years old. And she swore she never, that I did. I'm sorry, Ruben, I'm ratting you out now. She sobered up and forgot all about it. But when she first got the job, she came home. I just gotten to Hollywood. I'm staying with my superstar aunt for the summer. I got the Stray Cat video. And some of that fearlessness was with that. Somebody's got to get it. 100 girls, they want one. Somebody's going to get it. I'm going to go get it. And maybe I'll learn that from her. I don't know. My mother's like that. My mother has double doctorates in radiation biology and molecular chemistry.
Wow.
Yeah, she's fierce. She's the head of a biology department and a head of an environmental science department in Washington, D.C., got an award from the president, had 80 people working for her. So there's just there's a clarity of focus. That's part of it. And there's a pursuit of excellence. It's not sloppy. Everything's precise. That you've got to be the best at your game. You've got to be so on top of your game that you can be that confident. But it's not just ego. It's the study that you put in. It's the love you have for it. Whether you're a writer, you're a singer, you're a composer, you make art in some way. I mean, no matter what you're doing, you've got to get real serious about how do I make this really wonderful? And she came home with the Golden Girls script. I'll shamelessly take credit for this. In tears, because she said, maybe they're trying to make she's trying to make me a dumb blonde, and Betty White's a dumb blonde, and she does it better than I do, and she's been doing it for years, and I don't know what to do. And finally, I mean, this went on into the night. Finally, I just said, Rue, give me the damn script. I am 19 years old, Mohawk, punk rock, because this was that era. And I read her line, I looked at her script and I said, Rue, I want you to read these lines like your panties are on fire. They're on fire. And she starts doing this thing, right? Is that the postman? I'll get it. Is that the paper boy? I'll get it. Well, she said she goes to the set the next day. She's working in LA. And she said that the director, the cameraman dropped the camera. He was laughing so hard. The director doubled over laughing and went on to win the Emmy.
Yeah.
But comedy also, it's about precision.
Mm-hmm.
You don't fall into it. I mean, stand-ups, good night. Look at the amount of work they put into that.
Yeah.
And the fearlessness and the struggle. sometimes it didn't go well. It doesn't go well. It doesn't always go well. That doesn't mean you quit. It means you get better. And sometimes you just forgive it. I'm gonna have bad cons where for no reason, nobody came to the convention. This last year we had random crazy problems. One of them was the headliner got COVID and the whole con fell apart.
Oh, geez.
The next week I was in Atlantic City. The hurricane hit and no one could get there. The streets were flooded.
Oh man.
But part of it is just you've got to have grit and
Yeah.
persevere through things. But back to your point, yeah, she set the stage for what was possible. And back to my original point, I didn't mirror the character after anybody except Tim Curry. And now you can see the similarities.
Yeah.
Because I loved Rocky Horror Picture Show. I
Mhm.
loved what he was doing. They were doing the craziest thing you've ever seen in your life. Nobody does that. You don't put on drag and dance. I mean, it's crazy. And there was just something so electrifying about it. And to this day at midnight, people are in the aisles throwing rice, watching Rocky Horror Picture Show. I also liked David McNaughton in American Werewolf in London. When he turned into a werewolf, that was the only thing I had in my mind of what does it look like when you get possessed?
Pretty awesome.
And a lot of the character, I was just playing myself. That's just who I was at the time. It wasn't that far away from what I was really doing. But I feel like it's just such a compliment that it touched people's hearts somehow.
So you were talking about dance, and you were talking about crazy stuff, and this is crazy. You used to be in a couple of breakdancing movies, and one of them was my favorite of all time, the Electric Boogaloo.
Oh,
Yeah, so Twilight 22 was my favorite band in the early 80s. When I was
Bobo,
a
boom,
kid,
boom,
I used
boom,
to try to
baby,
break dance.
Bobo.
So and I was really curious because it's not something that's brought up anymore. Like that whole break like genre that came and went, and it kind of just merged into hip hop and everything else, and it all merged in together, like techno and all that. And I know you were a dancer, so how entrenched were you in the breakdance scene?
That's exactly right. And we were all coming, and I did the Motown Review, and I was a backup dancer for Smokey Robinson. I did a rock video for Sheena East, and Donna Summer used to fly me around a helicopter. I sat on the same piano bench with Ray Charles and sang in his ear. So it's probably the first time that he wishes he was deaf instead of blind. I don't think. And so and that was a more traditional kind of dance. We were coming from ballet companies. I had gone to Interlochen Arts Academy in Michigan. The show Fame is based on Interlochen. That's where we would dance all day, or maybe you played an instrument, or you were a photographer, you were a fine artist, you were a sculptor. We were all obsessed. We were all probably the outcast in our little town. Over 50 states included, over 50 countries represented. So it was hardcore. We danced all day, every day for 6 days in a week. And you would literally just take off your pointe shoes and pour the blood out and put them back on. And that's probably the only reason I could endure the special effects. If I hadn't been a ballerina, I couldn't have stood it. Ballet hurts. And the beauty of ballet dancers is that they have to make it look effortless. It doesn't, you're beat up, you're bleeding probably. But something incredible happened. And that was when breakdancing first started, and we've got these guys spinning on their heads. And we were all looking down our noses thinking, this is going to last 2 weeks. You're not going to take the most talented dancers in the world. And they were the most talented dancers in the world, or at least the ones who made their way to Hollywood. There are other Russian ballerinas. I mean, they're spectacular dancers all over the world. But this crowd was coming from hardcore ballet companies. I was a modern dancer. So I was trained in ballet and modern, not jazz. We weren't allowed to do that in high school. So I came with a very classical background. And the choreographer of Electric Boogaloo was my all-time favorite. His name was Billis Goodson. And he was a big black guy, and you've never seen anything like this in your life. He could dance, he could choreograph, and he wanted you to be able to do everything. So this is what made it so cool. It wasn't a ballet dancer, a jazz dancer, a gymnast, a tap dancer, this one can pop lock. We had to do everything. And he'd make you put on point shoes, and you're doing classical ballet and then break and then boom, 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 baby, and then thus the telephone whack in Electric Boogaloo, one of the funniest things I've ever seen. Well, I've got the phone and we're just thrash, 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 high kick, whack, 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 whack. And I love that movie and I love that dance scene. And I'd see it, and he was my favorite choreographer. And I've never been so happy before. And it was a real wild time in Hollywood. I mean, one of the best dancers in the whole thing was also a gymnast. And you see this guy doing back handsprings and all through the whole hallway of that hospital. And he and I got to be friends, and he would tell me how the girls would give him attitude if he went into a shop dressed as a man. He'd go in drag the next day and they wouldn't even know who he was. And they would be so nice to him. So everything was really new. The whole, the gay culture was new. I mean, it wasn't new. I mean, it's been here since the beginning of time, but you know what I mean? I mean, it was scandalous. And even what was happening with racial inequality, and it was when it all started to gel. Because you will see in those breakdance movies, there's a South Korean guy, there's a Japanese girl, there's an African American guy, there's a Hispanic, Latino. I mean, we were all together throwing it down. And that was the only direction that Billis Goodson would give me. He would say, Mimi, row down. Turn on the camera. That's it. And sometimes he just let me go crazy and he would choreograph it. Just throw down maybe 4 counts of 8. So there was this place to let your craziness out.
So that's awesome. You started off your career as a professional dancer. How did that transition into acting?
I didn't want to act.
No.
And my Aunt Rue made me do it. She made me do it. She said, Mimi, you're going to be an actress. I said, I don't want to be an actress, Rue. I'm not an actress. You can't be a chorus girl for the rest of your life. You're going to be an actress. And I was like, and I didn't want to take Night of the Demons. I said,
oh,
it's ridiculous. I can't do, what am I? I'm not going to do this. She said, it's a lead in a movie and you're going to take it. So I did, And at that time, it completely blacklisted me. I couldn't get a job. People come up to me at the conventions and they say, why did you quit acting? Well, nobody says, oh, I think I'll quit being a movie star today. That'll be a great idea. No one would hire me. I had done horror. All I had was tape of me doing horror, and nobody would touch me. Fortunately, I was on The Young and the Restless for a while. I was playing a villain, and it was a big character. It was one of the leads. Until I got electrocuted in the tub. Damn it! I hate it when that happens.
Hey, that show was huge. The Young and the Restless was huge.
It was huge. It was huge. It was the #1 nighttime show in Europe, so it was already global. And that was a lot harder than Demons. Trying to memorize all your lines. Ooh, it's hard. But dancing, I would never have taken the role if it hadn't had that dance solo. That's why I took the role.
Okay.
And Joe Augustin, the writer of Night of the Demons one, had seen me in the Stray Cat video, and he wanted me. He requested me. Kevin Tenney didn't think I could act. He wanted some other girl to do it. Ha ha, Kevin. Oops. And I wasn't the strongest actress in the world, and I never will be, but for whatever reason, people liked what we did in that movie.
Yeah.
And that movie was a total ensemble cast. Every single person brought it, everyone. And also, it's not just about the actors. We get all the attention. It's not about us. The cinematographer was brilliant. He was a genius. Running with a handheld through that green, creepy hallway in Hull House. And I've just come out of the crematorium. You haven't seen the demon yet. All you do is you hear this, you hear something breathing. That's a simple thing to do. I mean, one of you filmmakers could do it right now. And it's terrifying. So it was also the music, which was Kevin Tenney's brother who composed the music. Brilliant. The editing was great. The sound effects were great. The costumers were great. The special effects artist, Steve Johnson, had just won an Oscar for Ghostbusters. He was at that time the best in the world. And he was the other reason I took the job, because I thought, wow, this will be fun. Boy, did I learn my lesson. Having crap glued on your face for 8 hours or 9 hours, it's not fun.
Yeah. But you did it 2 more times. So
well, I had to do it. I mean, I was the only character they brought back.
Yeah.
And I was like, well,
did you wear the makeup in the second one? I thought it was
for sure.
a guy.
Did I? In the second one, I think to this day, I hold the Hollywood world record, and I think I always will, because I was in that snake makeup for 27 and a half hours.
Damn.
I was glued to a teeter-totter, strapped in a trench. And if you see that scene, I don't look remotely human. I'm more proud of that scene than I am of anything I've ever filmed. And it was so low budget. Steve Johnson tied my tail to a piece of dental floss, and he's off camera whipping the dental floss around. We don't see the dental floss, and it's terrifying. Well, now everything's CGI. Nobody's ever going to sit in snake makeup for 27 and a half hours with 2 contacts in each eye, fangs that made my mouth bleed. It took another 2 hours to peel it all off of me in the morning. And then the next night, you turn around and do it again. So no, Demons 2 was the most heavy duty effects. And Brian Trenchard Smith is brilliant. He's absolutely wonderful. And I'm teasing about Kevin Tenney. Kevin Tenney is brilliant. He had no money, and they kept cutting his, I mean, it was less than minimum wage for us. It was affirmative action. They kept cutting the money on Kevin as he's moving along. And he did some creative things. The things people ask about the most are the broken mirror, that he had to get all of our faces in a fragment of broken glass and not have the camera show, or the cameraman, or the soundman, or the boomman. That was something. And then when I'm flying down the hallway, he had me on roller skates. Somebody pushed me. I'm going, ah! And it looks so terrified. I'm just out of control because I was trying to roller skate in a hoop skirt, and that's all it is. But I think that in Demons 2, Brian Trenchard Smith was masterful. And Demons 3 has its glowing moments. A lot of people don't like it. I'm proud of Demons 3 also. That one went straight to video, so people don't see it as often. Yeah. Jimmy Kaufman had some wonderful ideas.
I was curious how long it took after the films for the fandom for Angela to really start.
Well, what's bizarre about it is that it's still growing. It's bigger now than it ever was. I mean, every single day on Instagram or Facebook, I have original artwork popping up. And people are making, I mean, there's a train car mural. That's a cool one. But people come in and to the conventions and they have a replica of Whole House. They have dolls of all the characters. They've created new t-shirts, new posters, new paintings. It didn't catch on immediately. And I think that also that's some of the beauty of why we all went so crazy, because we thought no one's ever going to see this.
Yeah.
This is going to get swept under the rug. 3 weeks from now, no one will remember that it happened, and we're going to pretend it never happened. So let's all just go as crazy as we possibly can. Let's just have as much fun as we can, because no one is ever going to see this. And so we did. And now young filmmakers are doing the same thing. They're doing it with no money.
Yeah.
And they're doing it in New York. That's where I see it the best. It's happening in New York. And they don't have a budget. They just have a lot of creativity and a lot of passion. And actors are doing it for fun. And we were doing it for fun because we were getting paid next to nothing. Yeah. So I think that in the beginning, Demons 1, which we thought would go straight to video, no one would ever see it, had a red carpet opening at Mann's Chinese. It's the most famous theater in the world. You know? I mean, this is where Marilyn Monroe walked down that carpet. I mean, everybody walked down. Anybody walked down that carpet in old Hollywood. So there was kind of maybe there was a standstill, or maybe I just didn't know about it. It was a fan who dragged me out in 2010, and he said, "You have fans out there." He'd done this amazing sculpture of me, and it was in New Jersey where this happened. I said, "No, I don't." He said, "You do." I said, I don't have fans out there. That's ridiculous." He said, "You do." And I started going to these conventions, and I was blown away. So it's possible that the following was there and I didn't know about it.
Sure.
But it didn't seem to grow, not to the level that it has now. And now what we did that I was blacklisted for is considered normal.
Yeah.
9 out of 10 shows now, whether it's a Marvel comic, whether it's Gotham, it doesn't matter. It'll be a mainstream movie. It's all zombies. It's all possession. It's all supernatural stuff.
Yep.
It's all about the afterlife. Everything is on streaming. So now it's become mainstream. What did you like about these movies? What did you like about Night of the Demons? That's what I want to know. What did it affect you?
I'll go with that. You know what? I liked it. I thought it was insane, and you could tell when you watch it that a lot of people put their heart and soul in the film. You could watch a lot of film, like I've watched a lot of horror movies, and you can tell when people are passionate about it and when they're not. And that film, you can tell there's a lot of passion in that film, and it's really like wild and free. Like it is off the charts wild. And at that time, you know, I was younger when I saw it for the first time, and you didn't really see a lot of that, especially in mainstream horror. Like mainstream horror was very tame. Even some of the slashers and stuff, they were very like cookie cutter and cardboard. And I'm not a mainstream horror fan, actually. I like a lot of the underground stuff. Ask these guys. I'm constantly like, you guys got to see this, and they're like, this is terrible. I'm like, but look how much heart and soul this guy acts like. He's fully into it. And for me, that's where this movie was, or at least it seemed like it. Plus, it was absolutely beautiful. Yeah. The cinematography was outstanding.
He was
Uh,
brilliant. That was a British guy, and he knocked the ball out of the park.
Yeah.
Yeah, and everything about that film was really good. The dancing was good. The special effects were good. The acting, like, and you could tell a lot of the actors weren't spectacular actors. You know, not you. You were wonderful. Everybody else. But
Thank
you
you
know,
for saying that, or I'd have to come get you.
right?
Nowhere to find you now. So.
Present company excluded. But you could
Well,
tell
we were really young, and we were being asked to do things that were so ridiculous,
Mhm.
you know, because everything was so out of the norm. And a lot of big productions, in fact, all big productions, are tightly controlled. If it's a $20 million, you know, if there's a lot of money behind it, they're going to try to control it. They come in and they want this way.
Yeah.
And I hear this all the time with A-list actors, that they say it's miserable. They're not enjoying what they're doing because they're being pressured so much. And we were given a lot of freedom. My script said, Angela is now possessed. What does that mean? You know?
Yeah.
And then the director would say, I'm possessed. Well, what is that? What is that? And I think every actor captured something so unique.
Hmm.
If I had just gone, it wouldn't have been scary. Fortunately, I hadn't seen a lot of horror, so I didn't know how to do that. What I knew how to do was be a dancer. And when I'm really floaty and slightly, yeah, I have guests. So that it creates this kind of, and see, Tim Curry did that, because you're on the edge of your seat going, what is he gonna do next? When you're really scary, you don't have to try to be scary. And if you try to be scary, you're gonna look like an idiot.
Like you were asking Josh, like what was it that we liked about the film, you know, and kind of like bring everything together. Like earlier when you had asked your fans, like, why do you have this tattoo of me on you? Like, what does this film mean to you? You know, for me to kind of bring both of those questions together, you know, I grew up in Rhode Island. I grew up in South Providence, which is not like the greatest area of Rhode Island, but you know, a lot of crime and everything going on. And horror films was always something that kept me out of trouble. You know what I mean? I grew up watching those films with my grandmother. And, you know, when there was a lot of stuff going on outside, like shooting and people selling drugs, you know, doing all of different things, horror films was something that like kept me inside and kind of like kept me like doing something positive. And so, you know, watching Night of the Demons, like I can always sit back and remember watching those films, horror films with my grandmother and my aunts, you know, and kind of like spending time together as a family. So I think that's why, you know, a lot of people relate to these films and kind of like remember it because they think about things in the past, like where things were going like really well, you know, like now you're so busy running around with my kids were watching around, going to sports and doing everything. But like Dave and Josh said, you know, my kids aren't scared of certain movies because I sit down, we watch these movies together. And so it kind of brings everything back together like normal, like when I was younger watching it with my family. So
Your grandmother.
yes, my grandmother's the one that put me onto horror films.
Wild
So
child. I've never heard that before.
yeah. Yeah, she loved the old horror movies, so I would sit back and she would tell me, "Hey, this movie's out," you know. So it was always like cool to kind of have that experience. Like when I have to go over to my grandmother's house, she always had like a new horror movie waiting for me to watch, you know. And then so,
Wow. So in your case, it was better to keep the horror on the screen.
yeah, yep, because it was really going
Horror
on
was
outside in my
happening
life, you know. So
in the street,
yeah, so
and gives you an outlet for that adrenaline. It's the
Mhm.
thing about a good movie. You're supposed to cry when they cry. You're supposed to be scared when they're scared. You're supposed to care about the characters. And if there's just CGI exploding spaceships for 30 minutes before the story starts,
Mhm.
I don't care about anything. I mean, we're all
Yeah.
desensitized to that kind
No.
of CGI violence now. And I think it might actually be moving back into storytelling
No.
about a story. And you're rooting for the first Black man that ever survived in a horror movie,
No.
Alvin Alexis.
Yep.
You're root. And the funny thing is, I don't even think people were rooting for Kathy Podwell, who played Judy,
Yeah, no.
as much as they're rooting for me, which is crazy. But they were. It was like I was the bad girl and the good girl at the same time.
Mhm.
But you'll see that only with the actors who draw you in. Anthony Hopkins also has my birthday. It's New Year's Eve.
Oh
So
yeah.
does Ben Kingsley. So did Donna Summer. So does Val Kilmer.
Hmm.
And you can tell we're all a little crazy. But
Brandon's only a few days after you, actually.
Yeah, but mine's in the
Really?
second. I'm the second.
It's all coming together now.
Capricorn, you goat.
That's
You
awesome.
goat from the bottom of the sea to the top of the mountain. That's what the sea goat was. But with Anthony Hopkins, you're rooting for the guy who's going to say, and I ate his liver with a nice Chianti.
Yeah.
You want him to get away. I mean, does that make any sense at all? You're not rooting that Jodie Foster catches up. You're in love with a villain. And the nastier and the funnier he is, the more you side with him.
No.
Now, I couldn't have set out to do something like that. I had no idea that it was possible that I could have done something like that. That the audience is with me. But see, I was the outcast getting even. So it was a revenge story. Because here's the little cheerleader who has everything. Here's the boys who I can't get. I couldn't get their attention. I couldn't get a date with the hot guys. And I got even. And at the same time, good still wins out over evil because Judy and Roger got away.
Yep.
Yeah. So
And you're
I have
right, man, that cast was going for it. They were going for it.
that's what really makes the film, though. In my opinion, like the acting and the cast that really went for it. The heart and soul. Everyone talks about you dancing in the first one. That's like the big thing, like the dance in the first one. But you also danced in the second one, and the second one. This really got me because it was you and another character dancing, and you danced to Morbid Angel Rapture, which was it was that Covenant album. Morbid Angel was one of the first death metal bands and one of my favorite bands. I've seen them live. I couldn't tell you how many times.
Wow.
And I watched that movie when I was younger, and then I rewatched it again a couple times in my life, and I have never seen you and the other character. It was the first and the last time I had ever seen women dance to Morbid Angel like that. And I have seen tons of women at the shows, but they're in the pit and they're swinging. And I always wanted to know, in the second movie when you're dancing, did they actually play Morbid Angel and you were dancing to that, or were you dancing to something else?
I think I was dancing to the correct song.
Really?
I think I was. In the first movie, I picked Stigmata Martyr. And that's impossible to get. I mean, you don't go to the band and ask for permission. The band doesn't own the rights to anything. You got to go to Sony or RCA, whoever owns that, or Universal, who owns the label. And I wrote a personal letter begging, explaining why it had to be Stigmata Martyr. My best friend was a hardcore punk rocker at the time, and she said, it has to be this song. By the grace of God, I got the song. Yeah. And in the second movie, and thank you for saying that, because people don't talk a lot about that. There was a play that became a movie in the 60s, and it was called Hair. And it was about a hippie taking over a very uppity garden party in New England somewhere. So he's going to go in and crash this rich event. And he jumps on the table and he goes nuts. And he's kicking all the stuff off. And that's where I got the inspiration for that. I thought, you know what? I'm going to get on the table. And some of the things were totally spontaneous. And Brian Trencher Smith let me do it. It was a collaboration. It wasn't in the script that I was going to pick up the punch bowl and pour it down my shirt. I said, oh, this is what's got to happen. I got to pick up that punch bowl and I'm going to pour it down my shirt.
That's some pretty good improv right there. That was
yeah, there was a lot of improv, and there are a lot of great actors in Demons 2, and there were great actors in Demons 3. They were Canadian, but they were good. And the kind of people who are naysayers would say, well, let's see you get in a coffin and your arm gets chopped off and you're spewing blood and you're having sex and you're naked. Let's see you do it. We're going to film that, and then you can badmouth the acting in Demons 1. Because we were in some tough conditions, all of us.
Yeah.
Tough. Shooting all night. We're exhausted.
Do you still have connections with some of the actors and actresses from the films?
Now, 30 years later, the whole first cast is best friends.
Yeah. I assumed Linnea, I knew like Linnea had been on some of the conventions with you. I was wondering about Stooge, who was one of my favorite characters of the film, Hal Havens. He
lost his wife during COVID. Not
geez.
of COVID, but she died home in the bed. And she already had a lung condition, and she was one of the most popular casting directors in America. Everybody loved her. And he said, honey, I'm going to the kitchen to make dinner. Do you want me to bring you something? And she said, yes, that she was recovering. And he went back in the room and she was gone.
Wow.
I hadn't really talked to Hal. We hadn't really been friends since Demons 1. Didn't know each other that well. And when I got this news and he had posted it on Facebook, I reached out to him. I called him. And I when somebody's in a situation like that, you don't know what's the right thing to do. Do you bombard them? And then they're thinking, now I have 27 people I have to call back.
Mm-hmm.
But I did. I called him and I said, I love you. And I'm here for you. If you need me any time of the day or night, call me. He called me back and he said, Mimi, you were the one person I wanted to talk to. You were the one person I wanted to hear from. Because I'm a medium, and I channeled his wife for him. But then I started trying to get him booked in the conventions with me, just to get him out of the house so that he wouldn't die of depression. And one of the last cons, he said it was the first day in over a year and a half or something, that he hadn't cried.
Wow.
And something magical is just happening, that we're all gelling. Billy Gallo was also a very spiritual person. He puts up prayers on his podcast. So Billy and I are connected. Linnea and I are best friends now. Jill Terashita and I are friends. Allison Barron is on my board of directors for my charity. And I think that's also part of what you were feeling when you watched Demons 1. We liked each other. We liked each other so much that when Steve Johnson plastered Linnea's naked breasts, they ended up getting married. Phil Tanzini was the hottie. We're sitting there off camera, and he sits down at a piano and busts into jazz piano, like concert level jazz piano. I'm like, oh no. Oh, that's my weakness. Don't do that now. Don't just pull out an instrument and play it like a concert level genius and start singing. No. So we all, and now more than ever, and the whole first cast looks incredible. Nobody's aged.
Yeah.
Linnea and Jill and Alice, I mean, they look like they're 25 years old. Kathy Podwell is gorgeous. And so we're best friends now, all of us.
Yeah, I'd seen on your Instagram page that when you guys were all at one of the conventions, I think it was a big get together. It was kind of cool seeing you guys together after all this time, and like you said, a lot of the actors really weren't into the convention scene. So when you all together, I think it was a really good look for, the whole franchise and doing everything for all the fans. So I just want to say I appreciate that. And I'm glad to hear everyone's doing good and kind of friends, because like when you see other franchises, some people, they can't stand each other, and then like you said, going back to the film and watching it, how you had that friendship, like you look at some films and you wish that that friendship was still there, because you wish like some movies still could have came from there. And even though you guys only did one film together, you were able to do two more after, but it is what it is. But I think you guys captured that experience for everyone to kind of keep it moving and kind of remember this film. And so like it does for like me, Josh, and Dave to always remember like watching that film and then like having that movie night and having all the fans come out and watching it and have fun and then earning money for the Providence Animal Rescue. So I just appreciate everything that you guys have done.
Oh, thanks. Alvin, Alexis and I are friends now too. And the times I've been in conventions on the East Coast, now every time I do a convention, I say, have you called Alvin?
Mm-hmm.
Have you called Hal? Can you get Linnea? That we're better in numbers.
Yep.
The strength is in numbers. I dragged the guys out to the conventions. They were not doing the conventions. I just dragged Jill out. So I'm trying to get everybody to come. I dragged Allison out. And once we're together and we meet the fans, we have such a ball. Now they want to do it with me. The sun's gone down here. I don't know if my
Very
screen
dark.
is black as night.
Yeah, it is.
I'll flip on a light. You probably can't see me anymore. I didn't have the quality lighting happening. So I'll do a little plug here before we go. Now the first book is called Straight from the Horse's Mouth. They're all on Amazon. Again, if you go to Amazon Smile, that's the way to find it. This is the latest one. It's called Whispers from the Wild. And there's a chapter on encounters and experiences and lessons I've learned and magical things that have happened between me and tigers. There's a chapter on elephants. There's a chapter on great white sharks, whales, black mamba, and bees. And my first one, Straight from the Horse's Mouth, I don't have with me. That's in about 40 countries now. So that's a bestseller in some countries. And that's probably the most popular of them. The second one's called The Language of Miracles. That was written with me and mentored by Captain Edgar Mitchell, the astronaut. I just want to have an astronaut behind me.
Yeah.
Because he's my spirit guide now that he's in heaven. Those of you that have children, this is also a magical story about children discovering their own intuitive powers and learning how to trust their spirit guides and their instincts. And it's a little hidden story about conservation and nature. And these are my watercolor paintings. So I pen and ink and watercolor, and I cartoon, and not brilliantly, but good enough. I spent 4 years in the Animation Institute trying to learn how to do things. So you can see some of my, I've got, I think 62 drawings in here. And the age on this one is about 10, but adults are also enjoying it and laughing. And I've got a crime novel out called Aurora's Secret. And I've got another book out called Soulmates with Paws and Wings. So if people want to find me, now, if we're allowed to do so, I'm going to take a group on safari. And if you're going to try to stop me this year, you're going to have to shoot me because I've had enough. And I've got to get back to Africa and my charity work and my animals. So there will be 5 elephants waiting for me, either in the lobby, inside the lobby of the hotel. So it's the only place in the world where the elephants walk through the lobby every November. Very, very famous thing. It was on the cover of National Geographic. Animal Planet did a special on the grandma of the group. It was her daughter that claimed me as part of the family. And a wild elephant came into a safari lodge, kissed my face. And so the family knows where I'm going to be before my plane lands, before I know where I'm going. And somebody will come up to me in this teeny, teeny, tiny little airport in a village in Africa. So it's in Zambia. We fly into Lusaka, then we take a little jumper plane up into Mafui. And somebody will pick me up and say, milady, we knew you were coming. The elephants are in the park. And he'll be crying. The elephants are waiting in the lodge. So the lions also will be waiting. The leopards, I'm in 3rd generation of leopard cubs. And they bring me their babies. They don't act. That's what I'm saying, is that we can't rely on what somebody else told you, rather than having your own authentic experience. You have a right to have your own opinion about something. And that's whether you're face to face with a hippo or a baboon or a warthog, or it doesn't matter what it is, or your own dog or your cat or your horse. It's not necessarily true what somebody else told you. What's true is what you experience in that moment when you learn how to be present with all your love. And that's basically all I teach. Be present with all your love and get out of the way and let it happen.
Yeah.
And what we're discovering is that all human beings are psychic. You're going to receive information when you quiet your own mind. If you quiet your mind and you quiet your emotions, other information floods in. And it's just like you've got to get online before you can get somebody's email address. And once you get the email address, you can ask questions and have a conversation. But you've got to learn how to get online. And that's between you and God. God/Mother Nature. God got us all that is. That divine spark in you connects to the divine spark in them. And we learn how to listen and see somebody else's point of view. If humans could see somebody else's point of view, we wouldn't have wars anymore. We wouldn't be dropping bombs on each other. We'd be able to respect someone else's point of view. But if we can't learn it, animals are a good place to start. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah.
And if we're concerned about saving them, their environment, their world, we're going to save ourselves in the process. And if we don't get really concerned quick, we're going to lose everything.
Amelia, you have a really informative website that you said you've been putting some work into. Could you tell everyone where to find that?
Yeah, it's still a little work in progress. I'm still laying in photos, and then I'm going to launch it, and I'm going to invite all the fans to sign up for the newsletter so they'll know what's happening, and I'll know what's happening. So I'll know what you want, what you need in the way of teaching. I'm teaching online courses, and I've got online lessons, meditations, videos, a lot of information on it. And it's ameliakinkade.com. That's all it is. But you've got to spell my name right. And it's Kinkade. So it's ameliakinkade.com. I'll start loading the calendar for the horror events it's just revving up right now. We're in a bit of a lull for the
Sure.
holidays. And then people will get to know, where am I going? I usually go to Hawaii to meet the humpback whales every March, and the turtles, the sea turtles that have swum across the world. And my students get to swim with dolphins, and we get to visit stingray and learn how to talk to your animals at home, and go to luau's and go into volcanoes and connect with whatever kind of mystery is down in the ancient Lemurian caves. So it's we're going to get it all together again.
Yeah.
So people are not afraid to travel. I'm going to give them opportunities to have the adventure of a lifetime. And I expect all three of you to be on my safari truck soon. And
Definitely.
with
The
your
dream.
wives and kids. And I take you into the schools, and I take you into the churches, and you're going to learn how to meet the children and help the kids there, and the women and everybody. So the way I do it, I put every penny that I make on a credit card that has air miles.
Mm.
It's pretty easy to do. And
Mm.
then once a year, I get to Africa and back for free.
There you go. Yeah.
Yep.
So put it on your bucket list.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an absolute dream to do a safari. So hopefully one day.
Wow.
I'd really
So-
like to get my kids out there and do it.
Yeah.
Me
Well,
and my
one of the parks, they're not allowed under the age of 7, or the baboons will carry them off. So if you
So it depends how much you want to keep them around, Josh. Yeah.
you want to get rid of your kids, then you bring them. But one of the parks where I'm going, it doesn't have that mandate. And I've had kids that were 9 and 11. I haven't had them younger than that, but it's not impossible
Mm.
to have them younger than that. They can't be really, really young, or it is dangerous with the wild animals.
Sure.
They can't stray off, but it's the opportunity of a lifetime, not only with the animals, but the children need to see what it's like to go to a country where the people are some of the poorest people in the world, and find out that they're the happiest people in the world. The happiest people I've ever met in my life are in Africa. And Americans, if nothing else, COVID's helping us solve our relationship problems with our families because we're trapped with them. That's been
yeah.
an incredible curse and a blessing, but an opportunity to see somebody else's point of view. Now that you can't get away from them, it's a great time to learn how to get along. And then it's lessons in gratitude. Even if you are one of the poorest people in America, you're still in the upper 2 percentile of the world's
Sure.
wealth.
Yeah.
And we need to get over ourselves and stop judging and cursing and being mean and hurting each other online, and learn how to be grateful, profoundly grateful. I mean, I'll be in a place where maybe you have running water, maybe you don't. Maybe you have electricity, maybe you don't. Kids don't have food. Maybe they had lunch today, maybe they didn't. So, but they're the happiest kids I've ever met in the world. We dance, we laugh, we clap, we praise, we pray, we sing, we draw, we make up theater, we make up songs. So we're learning how, not only how to connect with other animals, but what kind of animal are we? What were we meant to be?
Yeah.
Were we meant to be loving and creative and joyous and all of these things that most people aren't in America?
Yeah. Amelia, you bring up so many great points, and this conversation has gone in so many interesting places. I really, really am appreciative of you and your willingness to join us tonight. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I'm keeping my 82-year-old mother waiting on dinner, and she's gonna crack a whip over me.
Yeah.
You think I'm a monster? You wait until my mother says dinner's getting cold. Oh no, I gotta get over there.
Well, we will not keep her waiting any longer. So
All right,
thank
come
you so much.
see me when you can,
Yes.
and stay in touch with
Definitely.
me. This has been such a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you for
Thank
coming
you,
on.
guys.
Thank you.
All
Have a
right.
good night. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Take it easy.